Recording this. Good evening. Welcome, everybody. We're honored to have with us Rabbi Zalman Abraham, as you see, from the Wellness Institute. So, Rabbi, first and foremost, thank you. Really appreciate it. We know it's late there in New York. We promise not to keep you too long. Thank you very much and welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, our pleasure, our honor. Okay, so let's get started. What is the Wellness Institute? Give us a little sense of what we're going to learn about.
Very good question. The Wellness Institute is a division of the Royal Jewish Learning Institute, the JLI. We've been doing adult education for some 22 years now, 23, maybe even 24. I've been there the last 14 years or so. And what's happened is, kind of we've been looking to see what um to try to address an issue in the Jewish world of how to make Torah learning, Jewish learning relevant in people's lives. That's been the JLI's, our challenge. It's no longer popular for people to just show up at Torah classes. There needs to be more relevance to people's lives. So one of the approaches that we found to be very effective is to kind of intersect or show people the intersection between Judaism and kind of the things that people are worried about, things that people are thinking about, things that are on the forefront of people's minds. For many people, that is their career, their business. So we have a lot of courses on all sorts of legal ethics for lawyers and medical ethics for doctors and the like, business ethics. But one area we found particularly popular, where we got the greatest attendance, was in the area of mental health. I believe that's for multiple reasons. Number one, because Judaism has so much to offer in that space, right? There's a whole Torah Hanefesh, like a Torah approach to psychology, really, that is just so powerful. I mean, I'll tell you a little later about my interactions with Martin Seligman on the subject.
Okay.
It's really fascinating, to see how much Hasidus and Torah has to offer, that the psychological world is just discovering. But basically, the most popular courses were in that genre, and youth mental health was getting worse and worse. So there was a need at that time to address that issue. And I think what got us to start the Wellness Institute, this is the end of 2019, was one particular trend that was taking place. A very unfortunate trend where between 2007 and 2017, there was a 56% increase in youth suicides. And that was with all the effort that was going in on all fronts to address youth mental health. And despite that, you'd expect the more effort you put into it, the better the trajectory would get, but it was getting worse and worse. And there was a lot of crisis around that. At the same time, we were finding that we have these gems for the world. But even then, that was not really what started the Wellness Institute. The Wellness Institute got started when we discovered how some of the world's foremost most experts in suicide prevention were recommending this approach. They were recommending, how can we teach people what the life worth living looks like, right? And when they came on board and they were telling us, instead of them teaching us about what to look for in warning signs and how to create warm handoffs, they were saying, you guys have the magic potion. You guys have the what it is that we're looking for. And I subsequently discovered that the science is on par with that. The science advocates for spirituality as being one of the most profound and impactful protective factors in the life of any individual, especially youth, in terms of keeping them from substance abuse, all sorts of maladaptive ways of coping with their existential angst, as well as suicide, amongst other things. So, it was really for us a major discovery. And as well, we found that the community wasn't quite sure what to do about it. Right. So just bridging the space between the experts in the field and the people on the front lines who are dealing with this, the parents, the educators, the people who are engaging with the youth, that itself was really saving lives, actually. So if we could do that and we could do our shlichut of bringing Hasidus and Torah to the world at the same time, it was a dream come true for us.
So this, as you mentioned, starts in the winter of 2019. Well, of course, in the onset of 2020, the world goes through something unseen. And we know that the mental health toll that COVID and so forth, in fact, this very program that we're doing continues to this day, began during COVID because people were locked down and they were eager for some sort of human interaction and education and so on. So I don't know if you saw that coming when you got started in 2019, but can you talk to us about how that cataclysmic impact shaped or changed and challenged your work?
I believe that we believe that God runs the world. Nothing
People think
happens
everything is
for
divine
chance.
providence.
Nothing happens for chance. But one thing the Talmud says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu makdim refuah lemachala, that Hashem brings healing before he brings affliction. So the remedy is there even before the crisis hits. And I feel like, there was God's guiding hand that got us set up to get started and to hit the street running when COVID hit. The lockdown started end of March. I believe March 30th, April 1st, we had our first major national training for youth leaders on Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
Right, with world leaders. We had the president of the American Association of Suicidology, along with other world experts in that space, kind of teaching the people on the front lines how to respond. It took a long time for a lot of other organizations to get set up in that way, and for us, it ended up turning out. I mean, nobody's going to say that COVID was a blessing, but the fact that we were able to, like, the society's approach to learning shifted online for us, that enabled us to bring a world expert in front of a geographically diverse and large audience. That was really the model that set us up. We were able to bring a world expert in front of multiple communities, multiple congregations, multiple school communities at the same time, and that's been our model for success.
So who are these, your customers, your clients? Who are these people that you bring them in front of? Is these Chabad houses exclusively? Is this for shluchim? Is this Jewish exclusively? Who is sort of this program aimed at?
So initially going into it, we didn't believe in ourselves as much as Hashem believed in us. We thought that, we would get this to Chabad max, and that would be it. But then we started to see that the world outside of Chabad needs this just as much as the Chabad community, and perhaps even more, because we were already exposed to a lot of what Torah and Hasidus has to offer in that space. So we saw this as an opportunity, really, to introduce the broader Jewish world and even the broader non-Jewish world to what Hasidus has to offer, and to that end, we're kind of doing what JLI has done for adult education for the Chabad world. We're doing that for mental health for the broader Jewish organizational world, where we have temples, shuls, schools of all stripes and colors, including some school districts that sign on to syndicate our various different events. Some of it is purely clinical. Some of it also has content, Torah content, but all of it is life-saving. So, in that sense, our goal is to equate the best in mental health with the best of what Torah has to offer. Side by side. We believe it works hand in hand. The experts already see it, but the layperson often doesn't believe that that's the case. If you have a behavioral health issue, the tendency is to say that's relegated to the behavioral health community, and it is true to a large part. If you have an intense situation, a situation of crisis, there should be a professional involved. But people don't recognize the integral role that every person plays in terms of addressing the mental health crisis. Parents, educators are the caregivers. They're the ones that are instilling the optimal mental health in the lives of the kids. They're the ones that are setting the trajectory for the kids, and they're involved in the mental health of the kids way more than the behavioral health system is. And that's really our message, that every shul, every community, every school is in that space, whether they like it or not, right? We're shaping people's lives. my pet peeve, and I'm going to be a little blunt about this, is that we wait till a kid tries to kill themselves and then go to therapy before teaching them their basic emotion regulation skills, how to understand the machinery inside of them, the conflict inside of them, what's going on for them, and how to control that and how to respond appropriately. The same time, the same kids are sitting 5 hours plus a day in the classroom learning all sorts of things that they may never have to use for the rest of their lives. And we're not teaching them these basic skills. And even though, yes, there's so much social emotional learning that's going on, quote unquote, it's really a lot of it is tertiary. It's a lot of discussion of language, discussion of, general discussion about the themes. At best, it helps kids recognize their emotions, right? But in terms of hard skills, it's not giving it to them. Right? And we've discussed this um, with governments, literally governments. We were put in touch with we were made a member of the International Institute for Mental Health Leadership by Devorah Castell, a dear friend who's the director of mental health and substance abuse at the World Health Organization. Um, she heard what we were doing. She was really impressed with what we're doing, and she's a person who has her eye on the world. She's looking to see what are the best ideas out there that can help third world countries that have surprisingly, some of them are doing a lot better than the US when it comes to mental health, partially because they're dealing with a lot more basic issues, crises, and yes, traumas relating to hunger and employment and all sorts of other things. But she saw the value in this model, the value in taking the community, especially the faith community, and putting them at the forefront of this. So she introduced us to this forum where we interact with 35 different countries that share mental health information. Most notably, we were invited to address the Australian government's mental health commission. We've addressed the Canadian government's mental health commission, as well as their counterparts in the UK and New Zealand. And this is really the future. The future is the community taking on the challenge and stepping up to the plate about this. We do have a lot of the answers. The answers are a lot simpler than people think. I mean, our goal in the Wellness Institute is to bridge the gap, the skill gap that people have when it comes to mental health, supporting the mental health of youth. And we ask the professionals, and we have a clinical advisory board of the world's foremost professionals in the suicide prevention space, and some of them in the resilience building space as well, which are two areas of focus. And we ask them, what are the most critical skills for people to learn, right? And then we look to give it to them. So for parents, for example, the two most critical skills that we've identified are, number one, the ability to connect with their kids, right? So we'll have the developer of attachment-based family therapy who normally trains clinicians to get parents and kids talking after a crisis, to teach thousands and thousands of parents how to open up those lines of communication with their teens before they get to a situation of crisis. And the second area is in emotion regulation, and kind of modeling and validating the kids' emotions to teach them what healthy emotion regulation looks like. And for that, we have also world experts in that space, the developers of DBT for teens, developers of DBT for schools have
What
taught
is
that and the like.
DBT?
Dialectical behavioral therapy. It's the current best practice for treating numerous issues, including suicidality, as well as several others. I'm not going to start acting as if I'm a practitioner here.
Okay.
I am not.
Well, how did you make this your passion? What caught your eye about this? If we could ask you to be a little revelatory, your personal involvement, and how did this become your passion project?
Well, before I was involved in this, I've been working for the past 14 years at JLI. My primary role was as marketing director. And in that role, my job was to kind of put myself into the heads, the minds of individuals and try to understand, how is Torah relevant? In what ways are Torah relevant? Is Torah relevant? What are the driving needs that people have that aren't being met by everything else in the world that they need the Chabad Shliach to be able to step in over there and be the expert, right? And that required an intense fascination with psychology, understanding that existential angst that people have, that search for a why to live for, right? That kind of gives meaning to every other area of their lives, and to really understand the central role that Hasidus plays in that space. So that's really what built my passion for it. I would advise many shluchim, they're asked like what are great marketing techniques to bring a lot of people to my classes, and I would say, you just got to be authentic. It works for you. This is good stuff,
Well, you
right?
know what they say,
Hasidus works for you. It's obviously Yisrael. Show it, share it with someone else.
authenticity is the most important thing. If you can fake that, you got it made.
Yeah, and if you don't have to fake it, it should be easier.
So, can you give us a rough estimate? How many people do you think the Wellness Institute's a little more than 3 years old and COVID and everything? How many people have you reached, and what are some of the plans for the future?
So, in terms of raw data, we've trained over 15,000 parents.
Wow.
We've trained over 4,000 clinicians in suicide specific care. We're an approved sponsor of accredited continuing education for all sorts of mental health professionals. Um, and then we're engaged with hundreds and hundreds of organizations, dozens and dozens of schools, um, practically every JFS in the country, Jewish Family Service in the country, as well as many behavioral health organizations, um, and and just community organizations are engaging with individuals. We have so many schools that come to us telling us, look, our kids are struggling. You know, people think, this is not, our kids aren't part of this. This is not, doesn't affect us, right? Um, and they think, discussions about suicide and self-harm and all these other things that we aren't easy to talk about, they don't affect us. But that's not the case. Right? 1/3 of teenage girls, right? Suicidality is a part of their lives. This is something they're thinking about, whether we choose to accept that or not. And so the schools are turning to us like, we don't know how to deal with this. And that's where we act as shadchan, we act as the connector to be able to get them that education that they need, and to help connect both their kids with the tools from Torah and the parents with the clinical skills to be able to support them.
Wow. So give us a glimpse, maybe what does the future look like for the Wellness Institute?
That's a very good question. I mean, we've been
I
thinking
only ask good questions.
Nobody knows the future. Obviously, hindsight is 2020, and it's a good thing that 2020 is now in hindsight. Um, but the future, nobody knows. So we're seeing that this is honestly, the future is a lot more competition. This is not, we happen to be in the space at this time. I think a lot of organizations you're going to see going into this space. We are obviously there and committed. We have community projects in 3 cities right now, in Toronto, in Vancouver, and in Houston. We're really hoping to come to Chicagoland very soon. Not saying we have plans, but there are some seeds that are being planted here and there. And the idea is to work with all the community organizations, create a communal uplift in the area of resilience. We are branching out a little bit to work to create training for organizations, that the staff should be trained to understand the elements that impact mental health, both of the people that work there as well as the people they serve. And our main goal is to get curriculum in schools. It's a very difficult thing to do. It's about changing school culture. That right now is our biggest priority.
Have you gotten any pushback, people saying, well, we're not religious, we're not going to teach a religious curriculum? Is this a religious curriculum? Is it something that's got to be centered around faith and is it Jewish exclusively? Well, I mean, obviously you can't give us the whole curriculum here, but have you gotten any resistance from the schools? Well, we're not Orthodox, or we're not Chabad, or we're not Jewish, or we don't believe in God. Has that been a problem?
The first course that we planned was very Tanya heavy. And at that point, we didn't dream to go where we are today. So the moment we started knocking on those doors, we realized that, as much as we're going to try to make Tanya obscure in the language that's used and so on, ultimately it is Tanya. So we took a little bit of about face and decided, okay, if I was a rabbi in a Reform congregation and I had to approve this content, right, what would I be looking for? And made sure that this was kosher for everyone. I'm going to, I guess it's a little bit of a public setting, but I will reveal something a little personal.
Oh, good.
We received an email by mistake, right? We had a booklet that we put out called "Parenting in a Pandemic." Was written by leading experts in youth mental health to help parents understand what the kids were going through and give them tools to support the kids. This was sent out by hundreds of organizations with their logo on it, kind of customizing the forward, signing it, sending it to the communities. New York State actually sent out several thousand through all the superintendents in the state, and we were privy by mistake to an internal conversation between a group of Reform rabbis, and the conversation went something like this: for what it's worth, this is Chabad, right? The other one says, don't worry, I looked through it, it's kosher. All of a sudden, when it comes to Chabad, they have a very high standard for kosher. But look, we're here to bring mental health to everyone, and Torah's message is universal in that sense. So we created a curriculum that really speaks to everyone. It is skill based, so much so that we're even creating a side curriculum that doesn't have any Jewish texts for public schools to be able to offer. Right, but the idea is everyone has a basic Jewish text, classical Jewish text. We try to stop at Maimonides, because once you go beyond that, it starts getting, is this my strand of Judaism or not? We don't want to go there, right? We believe that even from the most foundational texts, these messages scream.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay. Well, Rabbi, I don't want to hold you much longer. If anybody wants to unmute and jump in with a real brief, specific question, we do want to be respectful of the rabbi's time. And while
Rabbi
I have,
Epstein,
yes,
where would one go to see the curriculum or the books or the things?
So our website is wellnessinstitute.org. Again, it's wellnessinstitute.org. Over there, you should get an overview of most everything that we have.
Okay, wellnessinstitute.org.
And if one wanted to take the trainings, are you dealing only with like social workers, psychologists, stuff like that? Or what about like public school educators?
So a lot of what our focus for educators has been kind of melded into our parent trainings. What we realized is, unfortunately, educators don't have the bandwidth to learn about mental health. We do special educator training at the beginning of every year. And periodically we do that, but we also invite educators to join our parent trainings, which happen, we have about a dozen of them every year. And if you sign on to our website to get our emails, you'll be notified about all of the upcoming trainings.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Okay, and if someone else has a question, brief, just like that, to the point, please unmute. And Rabbi, just before we go, tell us the truth. Who really runs the Wellness Institute? Who's the backbone of its great success? Come on, just tell everybody.
I'm sure everyone here already knows. It's Rabbi Baruch's daughter, Razy.
Oh, Razy. That's correct. Okay, Rabbi, I want to thank you. God bless you for the wonderful work that you're doing. Is there one quick message? I mean, unfortunately, in this community, we've been touched, like I'm sure every community, by this tragedy of suicide. Is there one maybe quick thought or idea or kernel that you can leave us with that we'll be able to help somebody else in the future?
I think, in a nutshell, kind of the most powerful tool that I've discovered, what Pirkei Avos calls noise ba'olim chaveiro, to empathize.
Mm-hmm.
Just people are struggling, to be there with them when they're struggling. They don't need you to say anything, to do anything. You just need to be there with them as they're going through their difficult time. That's the most powerful thing you could do for people. You share that experience with them and you have the load.
Yeah. Wow. Beautiful. Okay, Rabbi, thank you. Yasher Koach for all that you do. And thank you for spending this time to share it with us. And again, please give us the website one more time that people can visit.
Wellnessinstitute.org. And thank you so much for inviting me.
Wellnessinstitute.org. Okay, everybody, tomorrow night, we'll learn a little Pirkei Avos. Want to thank the rabbi again for spending time with us. We'll send out the recording. Really appreciate it. Wellnessinstitute.org for more information and to sign up. Thank you, everybody, and good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.